Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's talk about wines I will be opening this year from my cellar. I have taken inspiration from the late Steven Spurrier. He had a column in the Canter magazine where he would recommend wines for the cellar, which included wines that required some aging to reach their true potential, and wines from the cellar, meaning wines that were either ready to be opened and enjoyed now, or maybe didn't even need cellaring at all. So recently I made a video about wines I will be filling my cellar with this year. I will link it in the description. However, since the space in my wine fridge is limited, I have to do regular fridge audits and remove wines that are ready to be opened and free space for the new additions. So here are 5 wines I will be taking out of my cellar and enjoying this year. As wine producers already noted, this Barolo vintage was meant for an early consumption, and indeed there were no surprises. Most of the wines I have tasted lately from this specific vintage are either already tired or getting there very fast. Some wines showed unappealing vegetal aromas, and even though I love Nebbiolo tannins, wines from the 2009 vintage were often harsher in style and unripe. I have noticed some wine critics praising the vintage. However, I have tasted wines from some of the top producers, and the best these wines seem to offer is great approachability at this moment, which is another telltale sign that it is best to open these wines and enjoy rather than to keep them in the cellar. In contrast, the 2008 vintage is packed with tension and energy and might as well spend few more years packed away. I know I won't be opening those Barolos anytime soon. Another poor vintage marked by cool and wet weather affected wines of even the most skilled winemakers. Again, I have been lucky enough to taste wines from some of the top producers of Wachau region in Austria, including Magnum bottles. However, the 2014 vintage lacked the depth, concentration, and the ripe stone fruit characters that I associate so much with the Smaragd wines of Wachau region. Instead, they showed development notes early and lost fruit quite rapidly, exposing only the structural elements of the wine. In comparison, the 2015 vintage, even at the level of Federspiel, continued to show lively fruit characters and seductive aftertaste of white pepper and ripe yellow plums. These bottles will be kept for another couple of years. Not all wines you are pulling out of your cellar must be of the lesser vintage. Some are simply at their prime and offer great pleasure altogether. For me, that certainly is 2004 vintage Champagne. 2004 is a funny vintage in Champagne. I fell in love with it the very first time I tasted some of its wines. These champagnes offered open and generous fruits and were quite approachable even when young. It has never been considered an average vintage, but somehow it always stayed in the shadows of 2002 and 2008, and often was cited as a good vintage for early consumption. But it has exceeded expectations. It has proven to show great potential and is increasingly complex, rich and inviting, yet with greatly structured, mouth-watering acidity. Even though this vintage can still be left in the cellar, especially top cuvées from greatest producers, I am not going to be stingy and definitely will be opening some of those 2004 vintage champagnes. I, however, will continue to keep my 2002 vintages in the cellar as they are still packed with energy, freshness, and are quite tight. Last year I was buying different styles of pink wines, not only the famed ones from Provence in France, but also from Austria, Germany, Spain, and rest of the France. But somehow I ended up opening all the other wines in my wine fridge except for those blush wines I was stocking up. So this year I will be opening them all. Some might already be going downhill and have lost their fresh fruit characters and lively appeal, but I'm hoping that others will be pleasantly surprising. Not all pink wines are made for an immediate consumption, you know. I am especially excited about Pink Sancerre, which is style not commonly associated with this appellation. Manzanilla is a fortified wine style in Jerez, Spain, specifically aged only in the Sanlúcar de Barrameda. These wines are aged under the floor, and despite being sourced from hot and dry environment, they offer amazing freshness. Some of them are aged even longer than champagne, and yet they cost almost nothing compared to it. I have quite an impressive stock of Manzanilla Jerez wines, mostly in half bottles, but regular and even magnums are also there. And the very moment the hot weather hits, it's Latvia, I'm sorry, the very moment we have the one warm week of summer, I will be opening some of these wines. Great aperitif and amazing to enjoy with cold cuts and small bites when sitting outside on the terrace. Even if you are not near sea or ocean, its slightly salty ting will make you feel like you are. I mentioned in this video a lot of great regions, and one of them is definitely Barolo in Piemonte. And here is another video I made directly in the vineyards of Barolo.